Welcome to the Tuesday Review, everybody. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by Callum and James in the studio. How you going, guys?
Good. We made it 2 consecutive weeks in a row.
We did. Amazing.
An achievement.
An achievement. A modern achievement in recent times. It's a big one tonight. We've got a lot to talk about. 2 new Marvel movies have recently come out of the theatres in Australia, which is playing at once, which is almost unheard of, right? Because of COVID, everything gets pushed back.
Because Shang-Chi came out over a month ago, but we were in lockdown for 3 months or whatever. And then the Eternals came out not long ago.
It's interesting.
By the time we got out of lockdown, both of them were playing at the same time.
And it's interesting. We saw the new James Bond movie this morning. And the June trailer has the American release date on there.
Yeah.
And I said to Alan, I'm like, that's our friend of the show, Alan, who will be on Car Talk after our show. It's interesting that Hollywood and Australia's movie industry seems to be in this really strange position where they don't have up-to-date trailers because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, that always happens, though. Like, I mean, it's happened throughout the pandemic. I mean, because of they're not going to redo the trailer just to change the end title card, a month or move it back or whatever.
And this is really interesting because we've had conversations on this show before about how it's well known in the movie theatre industry where Disney says, we want this movie playing on X amount of screens.
Yeah.
And how does... I would just like to know how it's working right now when you've got 2 big tentpole Marvel movies and Disney's like, I want this playing on X amount of cinemas. But but sir, we can't because we only have this many shows
it's something we've complained about before, and it was something we were talking about the other night, and we all wanted to see that new Ridley Scott movie, The Last Duel.
Yeah.
And it was playing for like 3 days and then gone.
Yeah, we actually went to buy our tickets only to be told that they had closed the session.
And it's like, everyone knows Disney, they force the cinema chains to play their movies constantly in all the big theaters, and just like you have to get that movie, you have to play it a certain amount of times for a certain length. And if you don't meet that criteria, you don't get that movie. And if you don't get that movie, people aren't going to go to your cinema.
Exactly. And it's bad enough. Usually there's only one of these big movies showing at a time because they don't want to split the profits, Like they space them out.
Well, I mean, what I'm talking about is Disney as a whole. The Marvel. Yeah, Marvel, at least they get spread out over a few months.
And now it seems like...
Spider-Man's coming out in like a few weeks anyway.
But I'm so sick of hearing about Spider-Man. It's going to be so nice when the movie's out.
You know what? I hope it comes out and there are no cameos and nothing.
Me too,
I hope the whole thing was like a red herring. Like
no stingers at the end either.
Just Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield just trolling people.
Maybe they have a cameo on like a bus stop or something.
Even though Doc Ock was in the trailer, like I hope he's not in. I hope the whole
it's a huge fake out.
It's one of those cut scenes that don't make it into the movie. But the theater chains must be eating themselves at the moment, right? Because it's like you got Disney breathing down their necks, being like, "Play this much Shang-Chi, play this much Eternals."
But I think they've been eating themselves since before the pandemic. It's just now the pandemic has
accelerated things.
Exactly. Yeah. Which we talked about, I think, during our 2020 Zoom episodes, where it's like the movie landscape was changing. COVID just accelerated it.
Yeah.
So, and now we're here where we got 2 Marvel movies in a row, and we haven't been able to talk about them. And now it's time to do both Shang-Chi and Eternals combo review.
One is more interesting than the other.
Yeah, but by what Twitter says, you'd think one and not the other.
We kind of have the opposite.
We have
opinions,
the opposite. Anyway, so
with all good divisive movies.
If you want real hot takes, you listen to the Tuesday Review.
For some reason, it seemed like our reaction felt perfectly organic. It wasn't forced. It was just like, oh, that's interesting.
Because we're not the only movie podcast or pop culture podcast with 3 straight white guys. We're not unique at all. But I will say our hot takes are the hottest. Because everyone seems to be on a different wavelength with almost every movie we review.
at my work, my boss went and saw Shang-Chi, and I saw it before him, and so I told him how I felt. You know, I won't spoil the review, but I told him how I feel about the latest couple of Marvel movies, and he feels like the mainstream people do. He says that it was, you know, he feels, we'll talk about it, but he feels the same way most other people do. I've only talked to one other person who was like, oh, too much green screen.
Yeah.
And then that's one person I've seen.
It's
I mean,
bizarre.
you can find negative reviews if you look, but
Yeah.
you can find negative reviews for any movie ever.
Yeah, it's bizarre that the way we talk about movies, you'd think would be the main nerdy, obsessive, you know, cinephile. You'd think everyone would be like that, but apparently not.
I mean, look, Disney has a deep bank account.
Well, yeah, that's the
That's also true. There have been
theory.
there has
true it
been
is.
controversial, I'll say, news stories about articles about journalists having a kinder approach to certain movies because they don't want to get blacklisted from free tickets.
It's also
that
we had this exact same
Yeah.
conversation not that many episodes ago, but it's also, I said this exact same thing. Even if they're not worried about being blacklisted, even if they're not taking money under the table, a lot of reviewers are just, the way the zeitgeist is, the way pop culture is.
Yeah, you want to fit in.
Yeah, it's either that or it's just when they watch a movie, it's, this is what I think because there's this whole other atmosphere around it.
I
It's
suppose
like
so.
they're letting too much
I mean, also they're not
influence their opinion.
There's also the case to be made that they're not independent reviewers, right? If you're working for a publication or you're working for like a media company,
But even
something
independent
like that,
reviewers, like YouTube reviewers and stuff,
Yeah.
like they're saying a lot of the same things over
but
and over
like
again. and
for
it's-
instance, a lot of these.
but I guess
will
those
say-
people also have more to lose because they're
a lot of these
smaller and-
reviews are also, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but they're also made in mind of like, okay, I might not like this movie, but I'll write it a positive review in a way because I know that a lot of these, we'll say dumb in quotes, popcorn mainstream movie
Audience.
reviewers are going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So they write a review. They're not going to slag it off because they know it will find massive enjoyment and they do want to encourage these people to go and see it. But it's like they know it's a bad movie, but at the same time they can't put that down there because it's like they're going to have the opposite public reaction.
The commode problem.
The commode problem, say. That, for instance, the BBC has Commode on and he says all these good things about Skyscraper or whatever else.
Yeah.
And he says these good things because he knows the public are going to enjoy it.
To
right?
be fair to Commode, it's also possible that people of all reviewers from all countries reviewing all movies do genuinely have opinions that
But it's like,
other people
if you're a
disagree
reviewer, aren't you supposed to review the movie in your opinion and not, I think people will like
but these,
this?
But these are people thinking with their careers in mind first, right? Because you don't want to be the reviewer that sits there going, this is a terrible movie that makes $200 million and they're going to say you're an idiot.
Not to name names, but I have personally seen reviews where they will say it's not a good movie. They won't say it's not a good movie.
Yeah.
They'll say I enjoyed it, but there's a lot of problems, and then they find a way
they bend over backwards to
they find a
compliment
way
it,
to try and please everybody without hurting anybody's feelings.
Yeah.
So they can say it's a bad movie, but without criticizing any one person.
Yeah.
Because I suppose when you get to the top of the reviewing chain, you probably know some of these people personally. So if you know someone who produced a movie, if you know someone who was like a stunt person at a film, you're not necessarily
mingle with the filmmakers.
you're not gonna be that guy who Mark or
Which I think is
hey Steve, I heard what you said on the review.
We've talked about this before. I think that can be a problem because no one's going to tell famous director guy that his movie sucked.
Yeah, the Disney problem. It's like Star Wars. Everyone's like, oh, great job, Kathleen.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams, you're great. And it's like, he might be a nice guy, but he made terrible movies and he made terrible choices. And it's like, but if you're in the industry, you can't say that because then you're blacklisted.
Again, there's always money in the game somewhere.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem.
Anyway, we've
we're getting way out of
been rambling for too long. We haven't even talked about the movies and why this conversation should happen at the end of this episode. Can we cut out the first half and move it to the end?
That was just that was the preamble for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
If people have been on Twitter or Facebook or whatever and seen the reaction to Shang-Chi and then the reaction to Eternals, then that ramble we just had would make sense.
Yeah.
Now we're going to contextualize it by reviewing the movies, and then we should have had this conversation at the end. Anyway, all right. So first we'll do Shang-Chi?
Yeah.
Or Shang-Chi, as it's supposed to be pronounced.
Start with the bad and then move to
Yeah.
the good.
Yeah.
So some context, this film comes, I guess it has a kind of relation to Iron Man 3, which enriches
Yeah. Before
the
we
viewing experience.
actually get into it, should we just go straight spoilers?
Yeah,
Because
of course,
At
straight
this
spoilers.
point, it's
Marvel
been out for long
spoilers,
enough.
yeah.
for Iron Man 3 and all the
Just
Marvel
spoilers
movies.
for
All
Marvel.
MCU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
All right. Did you want to finish, Callum? Sorry, what you were saying?
I was
Its
just saying
connection
that,
to Iron
yeah,
Man 3.
if you've watched Iron Man 3 recently or you've watched it at all, you'll get more of an understanding for this film.
Yeah.
Just because there
is
are
a major negative.
yeah,
All right, let's
there are
do-
recurring characters.
Let's do this. Let's make it easy. Full spoilers for Shang-Chi. Let's start with the pros. What are the good things we liked about this movie?
Awkwafina was amazing.
Yes,
all the cast. Actually, all the
The-
cast.
all the cast is good, but Awkwafina
Really good.
was my favorite.
yeah, she
Yeah.
shined.
Which I'm pretty sure when the trailer came out, you guys were worried about Awkwafina. You're like, oh, I don't know about this.
Like her comedy, I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know how it would fit in
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the dynamic of the rest of the movie, but it was good.
The
It also
problem with
helps-
trailers is you always lose context. It's like you say, a scene only works by you know what happens before and after it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
sometimes with trailers you don't really.
And
It's also-
I like the fact that she dressed and acted like a normal, she was like a normal person in this really weird world, right? And yeah, he was ripped and whatever else because he was a kid assassin or whatever.
Yeah.
But like she was just like a regular person. She was like almost like the audience surrogate in this movie.
Yeah.
And it worked very well.
She was comedic relief without feeling like a cartoon.
Yeah, exactly.
She
Yeah.
wasn't a cartoon sidekick. She was
Yeah.
a real character
Yeah.
and an actual friend to...
Yeah, and she seemed like a real
main character.
person in like a movie that obviously has people with, heightened physical abilities. Blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah,
dragons.
Which, dragons. And it worked.
Yeah.
For me, she was the best part of the movie.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think all probably the top pro is all the casts were amazing.
yeah, they did the best they
I think
could.
Tony Leung as the Mandarin, incredible.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, he's just one of the best actors.
yeah, his
and-
presence.
Yeah. What else? What's another good?
Look, I enjoyed the movie more than you two did. I thought it was
Yeah.
up until like the third act. I thought it was pretty good. Obviously, it was very CG heavy.
I think
Um,
the basic plot is very Marvel
Yeah,
origin
very
story.
standard,
It's
yeah.
fine, but it wasn't bad.
No,
Look, I think that the bones of the story were acceptable. I would have liked to have seen the version of this movie that would have been made without COVID existing,
Yeah, that's
or
true. They
or
did
even
film
like
during
you know like I said to you after the credits had rolled.
Yeah,
I want to see the 90s version or the early 2000s
Definitely.
version of this film
Yeah.
because I think that we would have a much stronger film. Like,
yeah,
so the positives for me, the story was acceptable, but like you said, it kind of every Marvel story
Yeah.
except maybe Black Widow and Captain Marvel it has an acceptable foundation to
Yeah.
build on. Awkwafina, like I said, was a standout.
Most of the jokes-
given the context of this film, I mean, we'll go into more detail about this in a minute, I'm sure. I actually didn't mind some of Ben Kingsley. I think that it was handled in a very poor way, but his presence in the movie is not inherently a bad thing.
We'll talk about that in the.
He comes up in the negatives.
cons. He's in the cons.
Yeah, no. I'm saying that they definitely could
con
have
because
used
he's
him.
a con man.
Well, he was an unwilling
Yeah,
con
yeah.
man.
I think that they
He's
could
an
have
actor.
they
thank
could
you
have
very
used
much.
him in a much better way, and I think it's a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
The 10 rings themselves were actually
Oh yes, that's a pro.
that's a pro. They were very. It was a
Because-
so in the comics they're just like the actual rings.
Yeah.
Each ring has like a different power or whatever.
Yeah.
But they changed it for this film to not be so samey.
Because
like I guess like
it'll
Green
be
Lantern
too much.
and also
no, it'll be
saturation.
too much like Thanos
and the Infinity
Stones. Yeah.
They made them like banded metal
Yeah,
armbands.
like wrist rings.
Wristbands.
which is really good.
Which
And you
are-
have 5 on each arm, and they like explode off your hands.
Yeah.
But they also have inherent magical power attached to them as well.
Yeah, they
We didn't-
extend the life.
Yeah, we didn't
of
see.
the wearer.
I have a feeling we didn't see the full extent of their abilities.
I'm sure
I
that's
feel
going
like
to come
they're
up in a later
yeah,
movie.
they've got to do something
They have a
more
plan.
because at the moment you only see them they're basically
yeah.
super strength.
yeah,
I
and
would've
you can also
liked-
like jump with them, and but
Yeah.
anyway, they're really cool. That's the point
Yeah,
I'm trying to
the
make.
way they reinterpreted that
Because
from
I
the
remember
comics to the movies
we
was
had
really
a conversation when we heard this was first coming out, and I was like, oh no, they're changing the rings. Like, what does that
Yeah.
mean? And no, it turns out it's actually a pretty positive change,
Yeah.
refreshing change. Like it was like something we haven't really seen in the MCU before.
And it made sense for the movie because they're kind of like those kung fu training metal rings, you know.
Yeah.
And
Armbands,
yeah, the armbands. And also the theory, which doesn't come up in the movie, but I'm hoping will come up in later movies. The theory was the reason they're so big is because they're dragon rings and not human rings. And that never comes up in the movie. But then there's an end credit scene where they're analyzing the metal and they're like, this isn't from Earth. And so they're going to introduce the aliens. So they could be celestial rings or something, which was why they're so big and powerful. So that'll be cool to see how they...
I enjoyed there being a lot of martial arts in the MCU. So I'm going to include martial arts as a positive.
I'd say...
The downside is it didn't feel organic to me because there was just so much green screen.
Yeah, I'd say a percentage of the fighting was well done.
Yeah.
Like you could tell the actors trained, you could tell it was shot well.
They knew what they were doing.
And then there's a certain point where it tips over into just green screen CGI stuff flying around and is crap.
That's right.
Like there's the bus fight where the first half it was like, wow, this is really cool, this is really well shot, edited, you can tell the choreography was well done.
Yeah.
And then it just turns into CGI nonsense.
Yeah.
And there's a guy with a CGI sword arm and the bus is flying around and it's just ugly and boring and...
Yeah. Again, over-reliance on CG, obviously it plagues the entire industry.
But
it would have been
Marvel.
especially Marvel. It would have been good to seen, like a more grounded martial arts
especially
movie.
for this, because Shang-Chi's whole thing is he's good at martial arts.
Yeah.
So it's like it's kind of like with Black Widow where we were saying how like you have the perfect hero to not have to rely on big CGI set pieces, things flying around.
You can have a more grounded movie.
Yeah. And yet, I guess because they've set a precedent and because audiences expect a certain thing, they don't want to make it grounded. They don't want to rein it in. They have to make everything big and explodey but that's boring.
Yeah, that's right.
But I guess considering the general consensus, people don't care.
Yeah, and I will say some of the CG in this movie was bottom barrel.
When the movie started and it has that opening scene where you see the Mandarin get the rings and he's going through ancient China and like going through the decades and centuries. There's a wagon full of gold that tips over.
It's like
and
PS2 era.
PS3 graphics. It was like...
I actually burst out laughing.
We were like, this is rough.
I look over to James and he's just shaking his head like, I can't.
And then in the middle of the movie when they're driving through the trees, Callum and I were just like, what? What? How?
Yeah, like
who okayed this?
I understand. Like we've talked about this on the show many times. CG's a very hard profession. Credit to those who do it.
Definitely.
A friend of the show. We know people who are in that industry.
Yeah, someone we know worked on it, right?
Yeah.
Not sorry.
But the problem is, who approves some of the stuff that we see in Shang-Chi? Because if I was the head honcho of like Marvel, if I was Kevin Feige or whoever was the cheaper overseer of Shang-Chi, it needs more time in the oven.
Yeah,
and that's being
about it. Yeah, we've talked about it many times before. CGI in big budget blockbuster movies, the people who work on it are very talented and work very hard and don't get paid nearly enough and get underpaid and short paid and all the time and get treated like crap. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because the executives and the producers and the people who have to make the decisions are okaying stuff that's not okay and are putting pressure on these talented people to make so many crazy cartoony things
I'm
that
assuming,
are unnecessary.
I'm assuming the pressures...
All you need to do was go to... I'm sure Disney has an old Wild West set somewhere or an old Wild West costume warehouse where they could have got a wagon, repainted it,
tipped it over,
put a whole bunch of plastic coins in it and tipped it over.
Yeah.
Done. But they had to CG... Some poor team of people had to slave away CGIing that, and it looked terrible.
It's one of those things of like
They probably
could've-
only had 48 hours to get it done.
It could have been a rush job at the
Probably.
end, and it could have been one of those things where they had an entire different
when this-
sequence made, and then the director's like, "Nah, something different."
And that's why CGI looks so terrible in a lot of these big budget movies, is because they do it all and they're like, "Oh, I'll do it again," and it's like they
that's
have
the thing
to
is like
keep
it's not
rushing
obviously it's not practical, right? So you don't know if it's gonna work until you see it.
Yeah,
It's like you
Yeah.
can storyboard all you want, but it's like it's not one of those
And
things where it's
I
like,
f-
oh,
I
you can
feel
change
like-
the angle, you can do this, you can do that. It's like no, if the sequence doesn't work, you have to start again.
I feel like especially with Marvel movies is there's this second unit side of things where the director, they might have say in the action, but really it's the executives and whoever's planning the movie
Yeah.
from the beginning. Is just like as soon as the script is sort of they have an idea.
yeah. Sometimes you get to decide the dialogue, we decide the
Yeah.
rest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is a shame because the director of Shang-Chi is very talented.
Yeah.
But like a lot of the other directors for the MCU, they get these talented like indie directors, and they give them these big movies, and they're always cookie cutter. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
what the director does.
Yeah, they have a formula.
Yeah, which I
Um,
think is the case here. Is that all the pros? There wasn't many pros.
I'm trying to think.
Look,
I did enjoy. Well, I'd not say I enjoyed, but I know the reason this movie gets so much positive feelings on the internet is because it's very much a like a Chinese audience-y kind of movie.
Oh,
There was a lot of like lingo that
is
a lot of people liked.
that is a very
A lot
big,
of family oriented
yeah,
things that
that's a
people
very
really
big-
liked a lot as
that's
well.
a very big pro.
Yeah.
Asian American representation in movies.
Oh yeah, but the most
Has-
obvious thing we didn't think of for
Yeah.
a pro.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest pro. Is like Asian American representation in movies has not had a good time.
Yeah.
But
But it's not just like the leads. I mean, like the family
no,
life.
the whole thing. But that's
yeah.
what I'm
There's
saying.
that
is
joke there was that joke that one of the characters says.
ABC.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
I know a lot of people thought that was hilarious.
But that's what I'm saying is Hollywood history is plagued with racism and misrepresentation and stereotyping and all sorts of horrible stuff. And we're just now recently in the last few years finally seeing black and Latino and so on representation. And Asian representation is starting to catch on as well. And the best part of this movie is that it does that well. From what I hear from the Asian audiences, Asian American, Asian Australian, whatever, they like that aspect and
Yeah.
it's well done. And the writer and director
It's
is an Asian American.
It feels like it comes from an
and the
authentic
cast,
place.
Yeah.
it's more authentic
Yeah.
and it's better for movies in general to have different perspectives and for it to be done well. And that's probably
Also,
the best thing about
telling
Shang-Chi
different
is it's
stories.
done well.
You know,
Yeah.
speaking for white men.
Yeah.
There's only like what 10 stories Hollywood tells at any one time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, obviously, I'm sure it's more than that.
Yeah.
But it's the broader the representation, the broader the stories that can be told, especially to people like us who,
Yeah.
I mean, I know you've seen a lot of Asian movies, but personally, I probably haven't seen as many as I probably
Yeah.
should. So it's interesting to get
Different perspectives, yeah.
especially the martial arts side of things.
Yeah.
It's not new to me, but how often do we get to see it at the movies? Not very often.
Oh, in terms of mainstream movies, there
Yeah.
aren't many kung fu movies anymore in terms of mainstream.
Yeah, but just in general, it's nice to see
Yeah.
some new stories, as you
Yeah,
said, fresh
no.
perspectives.
So that's probably the biggest pro is like it's well done. I mean, is that it in pros?
I think so.
I mean, it's like the pros are pretty thin, but like we all kind of didn't hate it.
No, I enjoyed it for what it was.
So
Yeah.
it's complicated, and to show how it's complicated, we'll start talking about the negatives.
Yeah. Oh boy. I mean, where do we begin?
Alright. So a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a movie was released called Iron Man 3.
Oh yes.
Now, certain people enjoyed that movie a lot, certain people didn't. Were we doing the show when Iron Man 3 came out?
No.
No.
That
Okay.
was ages ago.
Yeah. So
But we've talked about it. We've argued about
yeah,
it.
yeah. So I have huge problems with Iron Man 3 because the Mandarin.
So
Very briefly.
Yeah, I'll
let's-
sum it up. The Iron Man 3 was an iconic, the Mandarin, I should say, was an
yeah.
iconic Iron Man character. I personally felt like they did him a disservice by going the route that they chose, by making Ben Kingsley's character, the actor Trevor,
yeah.
the fake Mandarin.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that Guy
Guy Pearce's
Guy
character,
Pearce
yeah.
was like the actual villain.
The puppet master.
And then no, it wasn't just me. Other neckbeards also got
No.
upset, and then they retconned it, kind of, which some people didn't like.
Yeah.
Long story short, they decided to reinvent the Mandarin for this film, Shang-Chi and the Eternals.
Yeah.
So we find ourselves...
And the Ten Rings.
And the Ten Rings. And the Eternals.
And the
I'm sorry.
Legend of the Ten.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's,
You're combining the reviews with...
Yeah, I know. My
combining
mind is my mind is a million steps ahead of my mouth, as it always is. So we find ourselves in this world, in the MCU, where the Mandarin kind of already existed, but then there were changes made, and this film solidifies all of that.
That's a pro to sort of continue on from the Asian representation thing. The Mandarin in the comic books, even though he's one of the most famous Iron Man villains and, you know, a popular, well-known villain, he was very much like a sort of Fu Manchu, Ming the Merciless type of stereotypical Asian villain with a long mustache and long fingernails. And it's kind of like, yeah, that's not cool, man. And so I understand, you know, you're in a rock and a hard place. It's like, how do you bring that iconic villain?
Well, I mean, they did it so well because obviously it's like if he's got a long life, he just ages through.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Is saying they did a great job
of reinterpreting the character,
it, and also reinterpreting it for this movie because in the comic books, Shang-Chi's father was like Fu Manchu or someone, and it's like they kind of combined it where it's like Shang-Chi is the Mandarin's son, and they combined it well, and they did a good job of like sort of bringing Mandarin to life, and like I said, Tony Leung's performance was awesome. Unfortunately, in taking an iconic villain like the Mandarin and sort of changing him to this extent, I understand the negative stereotypes. I'm not advocating for that at all. That's not what I'm saying. What they end up doing is making him not a very good villain. So they try to make him sympathetic.
They make him too sympathetic.
He's more of a...
If you have no real tangible villain, when you're making a superhero movie, you need a villain, and I mean villain with a capital V, not just like there's the Mandarin. He's got a heart. He's got an okay heart, but he does the wrong thing sometimes.
An action movie is only as good as its villain.
That's right.
And this movie, one of the big cons is that even though the Mandarin is the antagonist, he's got this kind of... His goal is to like free his dead wife from... He thinks she's trapped in this other dimension, and so he's going to do whatever it takes to get her back.
That's right.
And Shang-Chi like has to go up against his father to sort of save the town that he's going to destroy to save the mother, because he knows that's not actually the mother, and he's being tricked. So it's like there's no real good juicy evil villain.
The villain,
there is.
The actual villain that we get,
it's Trevor. He's so annoying that he ruins the movie.
The actual villain,
we'll get to that. That's the biggest con.
The actual villain that we get is more like the idea of evil, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it has an actual name, but it's more like default, and it is a villain from the comics as well.
CG dragons.
But in the context of this film, it's more like just default evil.
Yeah, but it's like the Mandarin
amorphous evil.
The Mandarin is the antagonist for the whole movie until we find out that he's actually being tricked by generic, unseen evil force, which turns into a dragon monster.
Yeah.
And it's like...
It's a little lazy.
Yeah. Like, they would have... Like, because I turned to Callum after the movie finished, and I said, I know you don't like what they did to him in Iron Man 3, but
that was a waste of the Mandarin.
Yeah, after all said and done, Shang-Chi also wastes the Mandarin, but in a different way.
Oh, and I 100% agreed with you.
Especially because they kill him off at the end.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's comic books, so you can always come back. But it's like...
It's done now.
Yeah.
That's at the end of the day, that character's had his time in the sun.
Yeah.
And that can't really be done. And the MCU's not going to have reboots. You know what I mean? Like the MCU just going to keep trucking along down the line. Yeah. So it's not like they're going to bring him back one day. Yeah. And it's like a fresh version of the Mandarin, like it's James Bond. You know, like the MCU isn't like the Bond universe.
They're not going to recast.
In 20 years, we might get another Blofeld or whatever. But at the moment, that's not how the MCU works.
Because they're all connected, they're not just going to So, in sort of tying into that, Trevor, who was the Liverpool actor who Guy Pearce's character uses as a puppet to trick people into thinking he's the Mandarin, the terrorist leader, which personally I think was genius, and I love Iron Man 3, but I understand why people got mad. There was a short film released between movies where they kind of showed that he was in prison and the real Mandarin came to kidnap him. Yeah. And that was just a way to placate fans and shut them up for a bit until this movie where they did probably the worst thing they could have done. Yeah. Which is reintroduce Trevor as a main character halfway through the movie who helps Shang-Chi rediscover his mother's homeland.
It irritated me more than I can give words.
It sounds so dumb when you say it out loud.
Yeah, because it is beyond stupid, and whoever made the decision should be very ashamed.
And he has that pet.
That pet. When I saw that, it's like a wombat, but instead of with a head, it's two butts, and it's got wings. And I think I turned to Callum and I said...
Is that a thing See, I don't know enough about Chinese mythological folklore. But...
Okay, that's another thing.
That's not an excuse.
All the magical creatures looked terrible.
Yeah, they did.
They're the only one I recognized from Chinese mythology was that lion dog thing. And that looked like crap. And I can't imagine anyone being cool with that. Yeah, all that was terrible. But yeah, if you hated Iron Man 3 because of Trevor's character...
You're not going to enjoy this movie.
No.
You reckon you will?
No. This is what I'm saying, right? If you hated Iron Man 3 because of Trevor's character, a lot of people online are saying, I love what they did with Trevor. Haha, they brought him back, but they made him silly and they brought the real Mandarin. Why was it okay in this movie but not in Iron Man 3?
Morris, by the way. The pet's name.
The pet, that little little Morris. Wombat butt creature.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of people saying, because all the comments were, oh my God, Trevor's so funny. I'm like, people hated Iron Man 3 because of what they did to Mandarin. Just because this movie has the Mandarin, which, as we already established, doesn't do him justice.
No, yeah.
Why is it okay for him to come back
in an even worse role, with no gravitas?
It's for a role that didn't need to be in the movie because the movie should be about Shang-Chi and his father and the other new characters.
They could have just cut 10 minutes off of it or give us 10 more minutes of world building somewhere else.
It was bizarre, and especially because they go to Mandarin's palace or whatever, and they're and then they're they come across Ben Kingsley in a dungeon.
Yeah.
And then he helps them find the mother's homeland. And there's all this silly yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, because he talks to Morris, by the way, and Morris knows how to get there.
Yeah, and it's so dumb.
So you have this the alias creature. Is Chicken Pig.
Yeah.
And its whole purpose is to whisper in Trevor's ear directions about how to get to the mythical city.
They could have cut all that out and just had Shang-Chi finds a map that his mother left him, or
something to do with the amulet and his bloodline.
Or he touches the amulet and it shows him.
Or he gets blood on the amulet and it glows.
Or the mother had a pet bird and the bird flies and they can follow it. Something stupid. Whatever. Yeah. They didn't need to add a whole subplot. Reintroducing Trevor just to play say to fans, oh, you didn't like him there? We're going to bring him back, but now he's a prisoner of the real Mandarin. Isn't that funny? Because there was that little short film where you saw him get kidnapped from prison.
Look, writing is rewriting. I feel like it's like script writing 101, and I haven't even taken script writing 101, but writing in general, you don't want to have too many subplots because it confuses the narrative.
Especially when you have to introduce a new character that people aren't familiar with.
That's right.
Shang-Chi, who's going to be a main MCU character for the next 10 plus years.
Right, ideally, you want the story to follow one straight line, as straight as it can be, with secondary characters only having small little journeys along the side, but it shouldn't have that much fat on it, because they already have enough to do in the movie. They didn't need to add on extra points of interest for the viewer.
And like we said, wouldn't it have been great if the Mandarin said something like, the last time someone, took my name.
I
and,
cut off his
and-
head and just
Yeah, or like I was saying, wouldn't it be fun if the Mandarin said something, and then they went in the dungeon and you see Trevor, like his skeletal body,
Yeah.
whatever. And then Callum made a really good point. He's like, wouldn't it be cool if it was like him stuck in carbonite?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is so cool. How cool would it be if Mandarin, like Jabba the Hutt says, the last person to displease me, look what happened to them, and the camera pans over and it's Han Solo in carbonite, and everyone's like, oh, imagine that Mandarin is like the last person to screw with and use my name. Look what happened to them, and the camera pans over, and it's like Ben Kingsley all in gold, like with a horrible look on his face.
Yeah.
Like in
And
agony.
that not only does
like
that recognize,
carbonite.
not only is it a nod to Iron Man 3,
Yeah.
but it also shows the
So
ferocity of the Mandarin.
So it's like you wink to fans who didn't like Iron Man 3, go, look, we're kind of fixing it.
Yeah.
And for people who did like Iron Man 3, like myself, you go, okay, we're moving on from that and introducing the real Mandarin.
Yeah.
And I would have been really happy with that.
Yeah, me.
Why are
everyone
you
would.
bringing back the character people didn't like for an extended subplot?
And it's not like 10 minutes. He's in it for like a good half the film.
And he helps them on their adventure. It's insane. It's all right. We're almost out of time. We still haven't talked about Eternals, but we should probably finish Shang-Chi because, like, so much bad stuff happens, and I'm not okay with people giving this movie a pass and not giving Eternals a pass. So let's finish Shang-Chi with the dragons at the end. I mean, all the superhero movies in general have third act problems.
Yeah.
MCU movies especially have lots of third act problems. This movie, the whole third act is just CGI nonsense. Awkwafina's character becomes a master archer, whatever. There's just CGI stuff flying around. The villains just become the big fight between Shang-Chi and his father, which is supposed to be this sort of epic battle, is just all grey and CGI dust everywhere. It's very boring.
I said to James, actually, when we were watching the movie, it's such a colourful film. There's lots of colours in the movie, but none of them pop.
Yeah, it's colourful with a big brown filter on top. And so it's not colourful at all.
But it's like you can see the colour. I don't know if it's done in colour grading or what.
It's all this ugly digital colour grading.
At some point, the movie would have popped.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame we don't get that.
We always talk about 80s movies, they look better. It's because they were shot on film. They were chemically colour graded. Colors popped. Skin tones were real skin tones. They, if someone was wearing a red shirt, it was a red shirt. If someone had red blood, it was red. Now they shoot everything really brightly because they do the 3D post conversion and dumb stuff like that, and they know there's going to be lots of CGI effects they have to put in. So it's really bright. Then they go in later and they digitally darken everything to make it look normal. Then they ratchet up this saturate the skin tone so they're very orange, and they mute all the colors and they crush them all down so it's all flat. You know how we always talk about movies look flat now?
Yeah.
It's because the way they digitally color grade.
Another weird thing this movie had. 3D.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that in the cons.
It's not a pro or a con, right? Yeah. It's not a pro or a con, but it's a little weird.
No, there was a scene.
I didn't even know 3D was a thing anymore.
Because I remember watching it, and there was something with in the bamboo fight on the building, and there was like
the perspective looks weird.
The perspective changed, and the bamboo sort of was falling in the center of the screen. And I said to Callum or James, I said, that looks like a 3D effect.
And as soon as you said
in a 2D movie,
as soon as you said that, my mind went back to the previous scene in which there's Shang-Chi has to fight his sister in the arena. In that, and I said to James, and I didn't know it was 3D at the time. I said it looks like it's being filmed. It looks like all the characters are CG, and it looks a bit rubbery. And then Nathan said it's 3D, and I'm like, that's why. Because they're doing weird filming techniques to achieve that.
Yeah.
Please let 3D cameras die.
Yeah.
Please just shot on film if you want. Just let 3D die,
why was
please.
that a decision? Like who made that?
Who are you pleasing? The 3D market's
dead. It's much more profitable to do IMAX shots.
Let James Cameron learn that 3D is dead, so we can all move on.
Yeah, but then when Avatar 2 comes out and becomes the highest grossing movie again,
don't bring it back.
Will continue.
No. No more 3D TVs. No more
Anyway.
3D Blu-rays.
Anyway, so the climax of this movie is you have this battle between Shang-Chi and his father. It's supposed to be this epic, moment and an important part for the main character.
Yeah.
It's this CGI nonsense. Like we said, Mandarin isn't really a great villain the way they set him up in the movie. He dies. Then there's another 10, 15, 20 minutes. I don't know how long, but it felt like forever of CGI dragons fighting each other.
Yeah.
Who we haven't heard about these dragons ever before. They've just introduced in this scene.
Oh, and an old man goes, "Oh, that's the dragon of our village."
Yeah, and it's like, where
Yeah.
did he? Like, why wasn't he guarding the village before Shang-Chi got? Why were you guys needed? Like,
That's right. Yeah.
what? Oh, that training sequence with Shang-Chi and Michelle Yeoh's character, really cool because there's no CGI crap. It's just them like training, in
Yeah.
that arena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very.
Anyway.
You're really trying to find
Yeah,
pros
really
on John.
grasping. I had to go back all the way.
You're reaching a little bit.
Yeah. But so the end of this movie is just grey, ugly brown CGI nonsense smashing each other
Yeah.
while our main characters kind of flail around in front of green screen. Our main character's biggest fear of facing his father, if you can say that.
Yeah,
has-
and the fight's
has
also
come
to
and-
save. Also,
has
the
come
fight
and
is
gone.
to save the soul of his father too. It's like this whole. It's supposed to be an emotionally heavy fight.
Like a Darth Vader thing, like turning him back to the
yeah,
light side.
like no, because his father's not completely evil. It's like, don't you understand? You're actually going to be doing harm to your mother's legacy by doing this. It should have been this whole weighty conflict. It should have been a grounded fight, no rings, just like two guys doing martial arts. You know what I mean? Like a put away your toys
and Shang-Chi
mentality.
just steals the rings off him halfway through, he steals half the rings off of him halfway through the fight. And I was like, wait, why did that? Okay, I guess he needs to be powerful to fight. And then he dies and he gets all the rings, but then the rings don't matter because he's riding the dragon. And who are these dragons? We don't care about these dragons.
The emotional weight of the conflict isn't with the dragons.
Yeah, all the emotional weight just went out the window because you've been setting up the Mandarin this whole movie. Oh, another con. His mother gets killed by a bunch of gangsters dressed in 70s clothes, even though the scene is set in the late 90s, I think. And it's off
Fashion moves differently.
and it's off screen
Back in
and really
whichever
awkward.
weird sort of remote
And she's
fortress
supposed to
they're
be a
in.
kung fu
master. Yeah.
master. They at least could have had a whole bunch of ninjas attack her, and they have this epic sequence of her taking them all along.
And it's supposed to be this martial arts movie. Yeah.
Until one of them threatens young Shang-Chi, and she has to give up.
Yeah, exactly.
And so Shang-Chi blames it. Why is it every time we do a review, we make the better film? In talking crap, in half an hour, we have made one of the best MCU movies. But the movie we do get is a CGI crap fest.
It's filmed by committee. We know
And
this.
people are eating it up. They're saying this is the best MCU movie. This is, the movie's It's not terrible, but whatever.
It's better than Black Widow, but that's not saying a lot.
It's now on Disney Plus, so you don't have to pay to see it.
Yes, which I'd say do that. But you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I know.
You
like
know,
I said,
like,
it's
there was
screenwriting
that-
101.
and there was that bamboo fight and it's all CGI. It's all very dark. This movie's too dark.
Yeah.
Again, 3D.
Yeah.
And that part of this issue could be the fact that 3D maybe looks better when it's a little darker.
It's what I was just talking about.
Yeah.
They shoot it really brightly,
And then they crush everything down.
and then they crush it all down, and it looks terrible. And there was that bamboo sequence, looks like crap. And I turned to Cal. I'm like, do you remember Rush Hour 2 when they're falling off hanging off the side of the building, and then they actually had Jackie Chan do that? Actually had stuntmen do that.
Yeah.
I know you can't do that. I know they shot it mostly during the pandemic. I know no one's like Jackie Chan anymore. But that's why you have stuntmen.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't need to literally hang off the building. You can build a bamboo scaffolding that's 10, 15 feet high, have a crash mat at the bottom.
That's right.
And have a stuntman or have one of the actors on a wire, which you can digitally erase now because that's what digital effects should be used for.
Yeah.
Have him hang off. Would have been great.
Yeah.
You put the camera low so it looks like they're on the building.
That's what if to anybody who's interested in seeing this film, I would say well, the critics love it. Go see it, I
Yeah.
guess. But it looks so fake.
Yeah.
There's just a real fakeness to this film
when people-
that you don't you get from the MCU,
Yeah.
but not this bad usually. It's just so fake.
It's like it's people don't care. That's why movies like this are getting such high praise. It's why movies like Black Widow got praised. It's like at the end of the day, they just want to shove popcorn in their mouth
and watch
explosions.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and people will say, "Oh no, you know what? Like it's actually about the family and the characters." I'm like, but that wasn't strong enough either.
No.
You know.
And the movie that does try in that direction gets crapped on.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well,
right.
we've almost taken up the whole hour on Shang-Chi. I feel like we need to do Eternals justice and do another hour if you guys are okay
No,
with it, on
100%.
Eternals.
100%.
So let's finish out on Shang-Chi real quick.
Yeah.
I mean, we've trashed it enough. And it's not even that bad. Like, we all
Yeah,
were
no,
just kind of like,
it's
oh,
just-
it's fine.
Look, I think CG is just one of our triggers.
Yeah,
Right?
but it's
And-
also like it's also like the things they set up, they don't pay off.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Mandarin should have been this epic villain
Look.
who his son has to take on.
So it's such a rich field to explore.
Yeah.
Right, the notion of a father going up against his a son going up against his legendary
Yeah.
father, and you can come at it from so many different directions.
Yeah,
The problem is they approached it in the most typical, vanilla, boring way possible.
yeah,
It's like they just put it into an AI, and an AI spat out a general plot description, and they're like, perfect.
sort of. Yeah,
I mean, obviously it's not, obviously no, but
yeah.
like
we said, the plot wasn't offensive. We were
It's-
just all kind of like, it's fine. But like,
I think more work goes into the stingers, plot-wise, than probably goes into most of the script.
I think that's a problem with the MCU.
Yeah.
Because they're too worried about propelling.
They're worried
we'll say,
about the next
big
film.
moments.
Yeah,
they
they're
need
worried-
momentum more than they
Yeah.
need a movie to actually be
They're
decent.
worried about where Shang-Chi will go next.
Yeah. They're
So-
not worrying about the movie now. They're worrying about what they're going to do in 3
Yeah.
or 4 movies'
Yeah,
time.
because I suppose they're already at Shang-Chi, so it's like let the story handle itself, but they need people to be invested enough going forward. So that's why this thing
And
is
they need to set the seeds for.
are usually pretty good.
Yeah, but it's just it's a shame because there are a lot of elements that, like we said, are strong and could have been.
Yeah, like I don't want to spend too much time. Like I'm not going to mention that we had a conversation during the credits, no
Yeah.
less, about and we fixed the movie like we always do. As
Yeah.
if you listen to the show, we
Well, we
professionally
just did
fix
that.
movies.
Yeah.
But it's like we had this whole concept for like a heist movie. You know what I mean? And,
Yes.
and that kind of thing. And we were pretty happy with that.
Oh yeah.
But the problem is, it's not that we come up with better movies. It's just that a lot of these screenwriters and executives, they get paid handsomely to come up with what on screen appears to be a very safe.
We've talked
very
about this
boring,
before as well. It's not. It's
option.
not. It's not always that they're doing a bad job. It's they're doing the job they were paid to do, which
Yeah.
is stay within the lines.
Yeah.
Don't rock the boat. You need to introduce this character, and he needs to be in this next film.
Yeah.
So this is you do what we say. We've already got the action set pieces sort of ready in the CGI. You know, in our we're
Again,
getting that ready.
Again, that's half the battle too. Is they probably got the CGI company saying we need to know what we need to do X in advance. We need to do this, this, and this.
You can only
and
change
so
the
you have to
scripts.
work within a certain framework that's provided. to you.
I hate having this discussion is because we really don't know. I want to be a
Yeah.
flying because I feel like it's a real disservice to the director who co-wrote the script and a lot of other directors we talk about on the show. It's a real disservice to say, oh, you know, they were just there, they were just doing hide the job and they didn't do, and they just, you know, like, I really want to sit,
Yeah.
like, I really want to know, did the director...
Did they force you to do
Yeah.
the X, Y, and Z?
Like,
The
because in interviews, they're not going to say
No,
the truth.
like,
they're just
the
going to say,
op-
oh, yeah, it was a great
blink SOS
collaboration.
if
Yeah,
you
I
need
know,
help.
Yeah.
The alternative, though, is also really bad. The alternative is they had free reign,
And did
and
a
then they
terrible
came
job.
out with this film.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not even that bad of a film.
Which is even a worse...
like it's not even that bad of a film.
Yeah.
But I would think that if you're so creative and so passionate about movies
Yeah.
that you've made movies to get Marvel interested in your abilities, which is no small feat. Like we might trash a lot of MCU movies, or not a lot, but we
Yeah.
might trash movies. But to get elevated to a huge studio to make a big film, hundreds of millions of dollars, you do need to have talent.
It's that thing of like
Oh,
it's like
they hire very talented people.
no, it's that
So-
thing of like you've
but-
got our attention. Now get into the creative prison. We're going to lock you in for 6 months.
They hire these extremely talented directors, and then they zap all the creativity out.
So it's like, is that the alternative? You know what I mean? Like, that's also real bad.
Yeah.
And I don't think it is. I think it could be. If it is a problem, it's on a case by case instance. Because when we talk about the Eternals, we're going to see that there does seem to be some freedom for some directors.
Well, I think Eternals was an exception.
Yeah, maybe.
Because Black Widow was directed by Kate Shortland, who was an Australian indie director. This movie was directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, who was an indie director. The two directors of Captain Marvel were they did like Little Miss Sunshine and kind of dramedies. And there are a lot of other, not just MCU movies, but a lot of other big budget movies where they get these really talented, really creative indie directors, or not so mainstream directors, and they give them, and we see the results. And I feel like Eternals was the one result that paid off that everyone turned against.
Yeah.
Collectively, and it's bizarre.
Makes me worried.
Yeah. I guess we should wrap up Shang-Chi and maybe take a break and then come back with Eternals.
Sounds good. Look, too long didn't listen. If you skip to the end, maybe watch it on Disney. Don't buy a ticket.
It's not the worst. It's better than Black Widow.
A lot of what we're complaining about will be contextualized if you've listened to our Black Widow review, if you listen to the rest of this episode, which will be our Eternals review. Whereas, why is this okay, but Eternals is not okay?
Yeah.
That is my question.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we said, Shang-Chi's not that terrible, but why is everyone saying this is so great and Eternals is the worst MCU movie or is the worst movie?
Well, we'll continue exploring it.
Yeah.
Stay with us.
One more thing. I just thought, do you guys remember there's the guy in Shang-Chi with the mask, the ninja?
Yes.
He's got that weird
He's not
white
explored
mask.
very much at all.
Yeah.
He's introduced, and then you see a flashback of him training Shang-Chi. I'm like, oh, this is important. You never reveal who he is. I'm pretty sure he dies off screen almost.
Deleted scene somewhere, maybe?
Maybe. But I'm like, what? Like, why?
Yeah.
Tonight's a Ren problem.
Yeah, it's like, why have that character be such an important thing if you're just gonna...
I get
Like,
late game script
to,
changes.
He doesn't have to rip his mask off and be like, I was your mother all along. Like, just at least have him and Shang-Chi have to duke it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least have something around that, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. We could go on all night, but
the podcast will be back after this break. You're back on the Tuesday review, our big Marvel episode.
Mm-hmm.
We have just finished. We just finished destroying Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, even though we didn't really hate it.
Yeah, it wasn't even that bad. It's just
there was a lot of problems.
There needs to be a conversation about the movie.
Yeah, it's like there were so many problems that people were willing to overlook, and yet not willing to overlook in Eternals. And
in
Westworld,
it looks like nothing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah.
It's like people just their eyes just glaze over.
Yeah.
All of these issues.
It's selective. It's very selective, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
Is it the Black Panther issue where it's because it's the first movie to generally broadly represent an underrepresented, say, facet of society?
Maybe, but Eternals was even more diverse.
No, but in
a less
focused way.
Yeah, not in a focused way. That's part of it. I feel like because the thing with Eternals is people are like, it's boring, and I'm like,
it's not boring.
It's like, I'm like, one, not as boring as Black Widow.
No, and a lot,
not
honestly,
even as boring as Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
Not as boring as Captain Marvel.
It's slower, sure, but
why is this the one?
I think the problem is...
because it's longer and slower.
The problem is that, and I know this is such a terrible thing to say, it's a film. This is an actual film. It's not just a popcorn eating... Like, it is a popcorn eating extravaganza.
You know how
but this film has a long stretches of character development.
Yeah.
It has a lot of dialogue, a lot of philosophical. No, I mean, like the...
philosophizing. It's hard to say. But you know
Philosophizing.
You know what the problem is? It's exactly what I was just talking about a few minutes ago. The problem with the MCU is all the movies feel the same. They're very cookie cutter. They're very
and that's what people
paint by the
expect.
numbers. That's what people expect.
I think
you get a movie like Eternals, which is
different.
not radically different, but just different enough that people say things like, "Oh, it's different, but that's not a bad thing." But what they mean is it was different and I didn't like it because it made me feel uncomfortable.
Also,
because when I go to see an MCU film, I just want to shove popcorn in my mouth and watch explosion.
I would say there is a segment or a portion of the reviews here that are just troll reviews, right? Because this is the first movie, we'll say, that is diverse without being focused. We had Black Panther, which was like representation for the African American, sort of
and
film
and
African film going experience cultures. And this Shang-Chi was the Asian representation.
Yeah.
This movie was broadly representative, therefore it's just woke. Right,
but
this appealed to there is a segment you can't attack Shang-Chi for being
but I feel like
diverse because it's Asian American. It has a purpose.
There is that toxic part of the community who doesn't like things because they're woke.
No, for instance, there's some same-sex couples in this movie. Let's hate it because of that. Yeah, there's inclusion in this.
I feel like
inclusion of that.
That element of the negative reaction is such a small part of what we're seeing.
No, but they're
negative
loud.
reaction to but that's the thing.
A lot of the negative reactions are from esteemed film reviewers and people of note.
Exactly, and people of color.
Yeah,
it's like
broadly considered a not a good film.
Yeah, it's like there is that element of people who will just hate it because it's diverse or whatever. But they're largely the mainstream reaction from everyone is the same.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
I sincerely feel like a part of the problem is that this movie actually feels different.
Yeah.
Not in a huge way.
No, not radically.
It is still at its core an MCU traditional Marvel film.
Yeah.
But you can tell that the director has a vision intact.
Yeah.
You can, even the way some scenes are filmed, the way some of the dialogue and relationships are explored, it doesn't feel like a traditional MCU movie. This is the first MCU movie, for example, to have a sex scene.
Yes.
Which is a big deal. It's not a big deal in the film. It's only 10 seconds in actual film time.
Yeah.
It's the first.
Think about it,
I think it's the first MCU film to have a gay couple pictured on screen showing affection to each other. It's
which was also a big deal in some circles and got the movie banned in the Middle East.
That's correct.
Some markets in the Middle East.
Yeah, exactly. But that's finally, they put their money where their mouth is and actually showed it instead of just saying in the supplementary material I feel that this character is actually
whereas instead of just having the rainbow flag on their lapel and being our Manello.
Testament to the strength of the director.
That's right.
Because I feel like there would be a lot of directors who probably just would have cut the scene and being like, okay, maybe we'll...
I guarantee there was at least one email suggesting pushback from
probably
the studio.
more than one.
You know what I mean?
Testament to Kevin Feige for being like, no, this is Chloe's vision and we will see it through.
Yeah.
At least in this one example.
I think, actually, let's start with that. Chloe...
Pros.
Let's start with pros. But Chloe, I think it's pronounced Zhao. Chloe Zhao, like we were just talking about before, indie director, small, intimate, low-budget movies, whatever, gets this huge Marvel movie. Now, as we just discussed, Black Widow, what was the last one we were just talking about? Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
Even Captain Marvel, even Black Panther. Like, that transition from those small movies... That really creative director, that really interesting new name, going to the MCU, usually zaps all the creativity out, and we get crap like the movies we just mentioned.
Yeah,
I mean, we still got a lot of the normal Marvel framework in certain things with this movie.
No. Yeah, but this is the first time that transition hasn't felt like they zapped all the creativity out.
It feels like it's her vision.
Yeah, Eternals has a lot of problems. It does have some cookie cutter elements. It does have a lot of sort of messy issues, but it's the only one where I was like, that Chloe Zhao who makes those weird documentary style small movies, I can see her in this movie.
That's right. Yeah.
You know? Whereas it's like the other directors, it's like, you can see
and I
feel
like
it's just a Marvel movie.
I feel like her her spark shining through in this film is potentially why some people don't like it, because you don't. If you're someone who doesn't really,
but it's
doesn't
also
really care
weird.
necessarily.
It's weird because the movies she made before this were so low budget, documentary style,
Yeah.
realistic, raw. She uses non-actors. It's all this real life grounded stuff. Then she makes this movie, which has some of the best action in an MCU movie. Too much CGI here and there, but whatever.
Yeah, it's an MCU film.
And this is the straw that broke the camel's back with mainstream
Well, no,
audiences.
see, it's like I
not
was-
Shang-Chi, not Black Widow.
It's like I was going to say though,
Like,
for
what?
for a portion of these critics, it's so. This movie differs from the other big explode. It still has big explosions and CGI crap and all that stuff, but I feel like most people, and indeed most critics, in my opinion, when they went to see this movie, what they'd expected in their mind was a more traditional cookie cutter MCU movie, because all the ones previous have pretty
been.
much been like that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the reaction to Captain America and the Winter Soldier was that was more of a people like, oh look, it's more of a thriller,
Yeah.
and people loved it that time.
Yeah.
But that was still a very much actiony. There wasn't a whole lot of room on there for Steve's romantic
wasn't-
feelings.
It goes back to what I was saying at the very start of this. It goes back to what I was saying at the very start of this podcast, is that I'm feeling my internal headcanon is a lot of these reviewers review it with we'll say the lowest common denominator in mind, and that's how they reflect their review.
What I'm trying to get at is that in my
maybe it is that simple.
That's
Well,
what I
in
think
my
it is.
opinion,
maybe
This
that's-
movie isn't the big dumb action pop.
Maybe
movie
that's why
people-
someone like Commode is like, Shang-Chi's great, Eternals sucks.
Yeah.
Is because he's just thinking, you know what, people are going to like action and they're not going to like
Yeah.
philosophizing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like they cater their review to
But
the movie.
Eternals has good action
No,
scenes.
let
But
me
it's too
finish though.
slow.
Let me
There's too much
finish though.
talking.
Like my point is that film reviewers and indeed spectators like us who go to see these movies, right? Any MCU movie, you have an idea about what the structure is going to be like, right? Some action scenes, a little bit of character development, and then you wrap up in the third act, blah blah blah. What we get with this film is kind of a slow, meandering, exploratory film about what it means to be immortal, like what it means to have relationships with people when you can't die.
What it means to have powers and
Yeah,
not being able
and not
to
being able to
help
use
people.
them.
Yeah.
And so it's this big philosophical movie, and it does have the big action set pieces, and it has the MCU payoffs that
Yeah.
you need to progress the franchise forward. But a lot of people would be sitting there eating their popcorn maybe, or doing whatever it is they do, thinking, I don't get it. Where's my CGI
and that's why I think it
explosions?
gets a bad review. It's not because it's a bad movie.
Because in the context of the MCU,
But
it is an MCU film, but it's also
Yeah.
dissimilar, and that might jar some people.
yeah, I wanted to leave this till later, but I'll say it now before I forget. I'd rather a movie be ambitious and fail than a movie be lazy and fail, or lazy and succeed. Eternals might yes, it might be messy. Yes, maybe it's too long or not long enough, because honestly it should have been a series.
Yeah.
Yes, it should have been a series. Yes, it doesn't do everything right. Yes, it can be slow, whatever.
But boy,
But-
was it ambitious.
But it was ambitious and it was interesting and I was engaged, and
Yeah.
I'd rather it fail doing that
It didn't
than
feel its length.
whatever lazy crap they
Yeah.
were doing in Black Widow, or whatever the hell the dragons were at the end of Shang-Chi, or whatever the hell that terrible script was in Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather it be a terrible, ambitious film than a lazy...
No,
Well,
100%.
This is, in my opinion, I don't know anything, but this is the most risky script I think Marvel have ever produced, in terms of your amateur
scope.
In terms of how the reviewers are going to feel. Like, and when I say reviewers, keep in mind, I'm talking about the neckbeards, these types of people, the more unsavory types of people, because you do have representation. You have a gay couple.
Yeah.
You have a person who only speaks in sign language for a start.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people are like, oh, now I have to pay attention to hand signs. You know what I mean? Like, I can imagine people sitting there being like, oh, look, it's a black girl doing hand signs.
It's like,
the politics, too many politics in MCU.
but it's like I was just saying. It's like, yes, there is that part of it who are very vocal and who are toxic and who are going to not like it because of that element. But I feel like overall, the large consensus
Yeah.
was that it still sucked because of other reasons.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of quite
Boring. Yeah.
And I'm like,
Look-
why was this boring? Because it was long. Why wasn't the end of Shang-Chi boring? Why
Yeah.
wasn't Black Widow boring? Why are they letting that pass?
It was
Too
boring.
much talking.
Yeah, it was boring because too many feelings were explored.
Yeah, that's it.
No,
Too many
no,
looking
no,
at
that's a-
vistas
that's a-
while having a talk.
That's a simplistic way to put
Yeah,
it.
no.
But I actually think
too
that's
much
legit.
holding hands.
yeah, too much internalizing
Yeah.
thoughts.
God
not
forbid-
enough explosions.
God forbid Lord of the Rings come out today. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's actually true.
yeah.
That is true. If Fellowship came out today, exactly how it was back then now, people would say it's the worst movie
Boring.
ever made.
Yeah.
They would never make a second
If my mum
one.
went to see it, that's
Yeah.
that's the thing.
But-
Would my mum like this
but
movie?
main-
Yes
yeah.
or no?
But like mainstream audiences who loved Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
now would hate it.
Yeah, that's right. Not
Yeah.
enough CG.
Yeah, exactly. No, 100%. They'd say, "Oh, it looks terrible. It looks fake. It's so boring. Why are they always talking? Why are they always why there's too much walking?"
Yeah. So
That's 100% true.
So I feel like one of my favorite parts, unironically favorite parts, is when they go to Australia. No. And I say unironically.
Bonza, mate.
Yeah, I say unironically because usually I do unfortunately suffer from cultural cringe.
Yeah.
But they go to Australia, and it's this moment of reuniting with Gilgamesh and Athena, not Athena. Athena.
The
Well, oh,
Athena, not Athena.
it's-
The Athena.
There's no point, but spoilers for Eternals, just in case.
Oh, yeah. I'm
we
sorry.
got the spoiler warning for
Yeah.
all. The
We had
Marvel
at the
beginning.
start,
Yeah.
yeah, but just in case.
And it's this whole thing about like Athena, played by Angelina Jolie, who, as James said, doesn't actually take up the whole spotlight.
Another pro.
After the movie finished, I'm glad she didn't, because
Yeah.
when you see the trailer, you're like, oh, they're just gonna make Angelina Jolie
Yeah.
one of the main characters.
Not at all.
But she's just one of the supporting.
It's like, yeah, and it's this great kind of moment of reuniting with the Eternals, but also it starts to look into mental illness affecting
Yeah.
someone who can't die. It's like this whole kind of conversation about sickness
Yeah.
with people who can't get sick. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing because they don't really know how to handle it. And it shows the interesting relationship.
No, he does know how to handle it. He knocks her out.
Yeah, but you know what I
Which,
mean.
It's a little bit funny because he's the only one that can handle her, right?
It's not something that they genuinely think about. Is what I mean. It's like
Yeah.
this. It's like a whispered thing. It's like, oh no.
yeah.
But it's this interesting dynamic between Gilgamesh and Athena. That's what this movie has. It has great relationships. I personally don't think the relationship between Icarus and Cersei is anything special. That's very
No,
bland
it's just
to me.
a normal.
It's like,
love
oh
story,
yeah, sure, they like each other. They do it on screen.
Yeah.
Yes, go Marvel.
Yeah.
But then you have like Faustus and his husband.
Yeah,
And I'm like, that's interesting.
yeah.
Makari and Druig's relationship seems to be hitting it off
I like
on
that.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Because it's very understated. It's like they love each other, but
Yeah.
it's this
You
unspoken
know the best
thing.
relationship?
Pun not meant. I mean, you know what I mean.
You're gonna make that joke?
No. I mean, it's this thing that's not really communicated more than my beautiful Makari.
No, I was gonna make a joke. The best relationship. Are you gonna make that
No,
joke?
I'm listening. I'm excited.
Is Kingo and his valet.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
For
100%.
a man that got so ripped for this movie or other movies,
He never takes his shirt
He never
off.
takes his shirt off.
Which
I
is the
just wanted
best
to see
part.
some. I wanted to see some.
Where was
Kumail
Kamal?
Nanjiani.
Where was Kamal's abs?
I
Yeah,
know.
that's it. I wanted to see the washboard.
That's why people don't like
Yeah,
Eternals.
we paid
found
$20.
it.
We paid
figured it
$20
out.
for his ticket. We don't get to see his washboard abs.
Yeah.
Negative
I
review.
do like the fact
Worst
that
MCU
I do like the
movie.
fact that they sort of tipped a hat to Bollywood tradition of like the family dynasty of actors,
That was funny.
and it's like he plays
My
like he's like, this is my
great-grandfather.
great grandfather,
Yeah.
my grandfather, and
Yeah.
me, and it's like because they look like
Yeah, it's all
it's
the
like
same
it's like
guy,
it's
yeah.
just all
It's
him,
just him with a
obviously. Yeah, it's just
mustache.
him with like a mustache, and he's basically the Bollywood Johnny Cage, which he all approved of.
yeah.
So yeah, that's and I think that's a part of the problem is this film is a very relationship heavy. The characters know each other. There's a lot of history. So that's the thing. There's a lot of history between
People-
everyone in
yeah.
this film, and that gets
People-
explored.
People are saying, "Oh, it sucks because there's too many characters that should have been cut out." Usually, I would agree,
Yeah,
but I think it's fascinating that Chloe Zhao decided to be like, "No, I'm going to have all 9 or 10
well,
Eternals."
originally there was going to be 12.
Yeah.
and then she was like,
a bit much.
yeah,
And she's like, "I'm going to dedicate time to all of them."
yeah, and that's
they're
the
all
thing.
going to have their own thing.
And they each
the
have a-
speeds they get less time than the rest. I
Yeah,
think.
that's true.
True.
But they make up for it with her fascinating dynamic with Druig.
Mm.
And,
but like,
and
and also
assumedly
she
when
has some
goes
great
off in the
action.
end,
She has
she's
great
gonna-
action scenes as well.
Oh yes,
But the
some
interesting
of
thing is
the
all the
best-
characters have different dynamics with each other.
Yeah,
Like they all interact slightly differently. They all approach each other slightly differently.
yeah.
So, but you know, it's an exploration about immortality and
I
people,
think-
and that's boring, I guess. If you're expecting car chases
Yeah.
and explosions and like lots of fisticuffs going on between superpowers,
Yeah.
you don't really get it that much.
Like two things. Makari's speedster powers are probably the best representation of speedster powers on screen.
Yeah,
Like it's usually just that slow-mo cliche, whereas
Yeah.
this she uses there's no slow-mo in this.
yeah, it's just bam.
Yeah. Also, going off kind of what you were saying is like there's a character dynamic. Like Chloe Zhao had to introduce the world to
Yeah.
10 characters that most audiences have never heard of.
That's right. The Eternals aren't a big
Yeah.
Marvel property
Like,
in the sense
Guardians-
that Iron
yeah.
Man is or Daredevil,
Like
Spider-Man
Guardians
is.
of the Galaxy was like a C-list or like a lesser known
Yeah,
property. But it's like that was easy compared to what
yeah.
they had to do with Eternals.
Like Eternals are important to the universe, but in terms of games and in terms of like T-shirts and things,
Yeah.
they're underrepresented because they're like,
Like-
if Guardians are like sea level, Eternals in terms of media
Mainstream,
representation
yeah.
are probably like an E level.
Yeah.
Just because they're kind of like in the comics
Yeah.
in certain
Like,
periods,
so
but they're not like Spider-Man who
Yeah.
just pops up for Avengers adventures and
So
stuff.
for several characters that most people have never heard of,
Yeah.
to have this epic movie introduce them all, I think it did a pretty good job. Yes, it's messy. Yes, it's not perfect.
Yeah. But it's a
it's
film.
like-
Like, it's
like
not a
I said-
series. It's just a film.
But like I said, it's like I'd rather it be an ambitious failure and like, oh, there was too many characters, it was too messy, that you didn't get enough time with all of them. It should have been a TV show. Yes, I agree. But I'd rather that than whatever the hell Black Widow was. Whatever
Yeah.
the hell the ending of Shang-Chi was. Why
Yeah.
is that okay? And
Yeah.
this is not okay.
That's right.
Yes, it should have been a Disney Plus series. I agree.
Yeah.
But this is what we got, and it was interesting, and it wasn't just
Wasn't
your
that bad.
typical Marvel,
Yeah.
like
So one
boring,
of the
ugly-
main problems that people seem to have is that they explore too much in too little a time. And the problem is if you're going to show, you have two options, right? I guess you have the Highlander route if you're dealing with Immortals,
Yeah.
which is you do flashbacks,
Yeah.
but it's mainly set in like the one period or
Yeah.
two periods. Or you do it the way the Eternals handles it, where you have like a slice of each period and you
Yeah.
show how they grow or, who's with them at each stage. Which I understand why, because it's that you get to introduce set pieces that way.
Yeah.
More set pieces keeps people engaged.
Yeah.
Keeps people
But also,
interested.
it's like it would have been better as a TV series because you can go, because one of the things is they only go back in time to like 2 or 3 periods,
Yeah.
and then there's like thousands of years you just don't see, and then
yeah.
there's modern day. And I'm like, yeah, it would have been cool to see them more throughout history, but it's like it wasn't a huge big deal. And the thing with it is you can always go revisit it later.
That's right.
Because there's thousands of years where you can just flash back and go, remember that time we were on the Wild West? And you can just put it in whatever movie.
Yeah.
Now, it would have been, like I said, it would have been better in this movie, but
Look,
one
of the problems we have with this film, or at least I had with this film, is that there was a question asked before this film, why didn't the Eternals interfere in any of the terrible things that happened to mankind?
Oh,
Now-
because we were told not to.
Yeah,
Nuremberg
we'll get to
defense.
the laziest.
I would have
option-
got in trouble by Daddy if I did.
The laziest option
just
is
following orders.
is always the I'm just following orders option, and unfortunately, that's what they pulled out with this one. It's instead of we were off on the galaxy dealing with other problems, the Captain Marvel defense.
Yeah.
It's we watched we watched, which is bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're standing there
That's the
watching
thing.
people butcher themselves. Like
It is
with the whole galaxy full of
Well,
story
they could have
plots.
just gone a little bit lamer and been like, look, we helped where we could. We didn't want to alert the powers.
I think, look, it was a bad decision, and I'm not going to defend it. I think by the end of the movie, it didn't bother me so much because you realize that they have been manipulated by the celestial Arishem.
Arishem.
Yeah, and
They've been-
Ajak was kind of not telling
And
the truth.
Ajak was, yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's like, and by the end of it, they're like fighting the volcano. I'm like, all right, fair enough, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and it also,
But
it's just
still,
a way,
they let Hitler happen.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
also just a way for them to be like, look, the MCU has to be all connected, and so you can't suddenly introduce superheroes for from thousands of years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
And not have them mentioned in Iron Man, you know.
yeah.
I think what they should have done, and this would be a pretty easy fix, it's not perfect, but is to, if they do interfere in conflicts, have Arishem punish them in some way.
That would have been a good scene.
Which
They go to prison.
considering
Like,
considering
what's-
Makari spends the whole thousands of years on the ship, I think there should have been a scene at the beginning where she's like, I've had enough, I'm going to interfere in this fight, this battle or war. She starts fighting, and then Arishem comes and zaps her onto the ship.
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
Yeah,
And then
Kingo
that's
goes
why-
to assassinate Hitler with his finger beams, and he's like, no, you
And
don't
then-
interfere.
And then when they find her on the ship in the movie, it's like, well, there's a reason she
Yeah.
hasn't just been hanging
Or
out.
even, I mean, this is a bit nerdy, but even the Watcher could be like, that's not for you to do.
I mean, they've technically introduced the Watcher
Yeah.
in the animated What If series. But, yeah, no, like, that's all they... Like, they
Yeah.
could have just done something like that. The way it is in the movie, it's lazy, and it's like, yes, I agree, it's a
It's
con,
it's
but-
funny, right? If you watch the trailer of the Eternals, you'd think most of the movie happens on this grey-looking awful beach,
Yeah.
but luckily it doesn't.
That's like the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, the Bollywood scene.
That was great.
Yeah, but apparently people like it's not colorful enough to be real Bollywood. And I was like, it's the MCU. Come on.
Yeah.
They're trying their
Hey,
best.
it was more colorful than the previous however many movies.
Yeah.
You know, like we just discussed, like that ugly digital color grade. This movie looked nicer than most of the MCU movies.
Yeah, it does. And
It still
I
wasn't great.
blame the director. I blame all the benefits of this lay at the director's feet. All the pros.
Yeah, like all the pros. Yeah, the pros and cons. Yeah.
Another big thing this movie does is introduce Dane Whitehall.
Whitman.
I'm sorry, Whitehall. A Freudian slip somewhere. The Black Knight.
Yeah.
Of course, who wields the Ebon Blade.
Ebony Blade. Yeah.
Ebony Blade.
Kit Harington was confirmed to play Dane Whitman ages ago.
Yeah.
Who obviously in the comic books becomes the Black Knight. And he's introduced in this movie. He's in like the first scene and like the last scene, basically.
Yeah, kinda.
He has a relationship with Cersei,
Cersei.
the main like lead celestial. Eternal.
Yeah.
And basically they're just setting him up for the next movie or whatever when he's finally introduced. And then there is that pretty crazy end credit scene where he unveils the ebony sword. And you hear Blade's voice. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So exciting. We were all jumping out of our seats. But I think his introduction in the movie is fine. One, because it sets up the relationship.
Yeah, it gives it gives him a stake.
It
so
gives
to
him
speak.
motivation.
And it gives him motivation to take up the sword, which I believe feeds off negative energy and so would do some harm to him and possibly to others around him.
I haven't read the comics
But-
in a while, but the whole thing is if you kill someone, it like really hurts you or something, or it kills you even, like your soul.
Like, I think the more you kill with it, the more it
Yeah.
feeds off that negative energy and it feeds off your like negative feelings. But anyway, what I'm saying is it gives
It's a
an
bad
excuse-
magical sword.
His relationship with Cersei and her getting taken away by Arishem at the end gives him an excuse to become the Black Knight.
We've got a Celestial to kill.
And exactly.
Well, we should
The
actually,
mother of all bad kids.
we should
Yeah,
actually,
but
we should actually just for context, actually do a very quick summary of the film before we go off.
Well, I
on
mean,
the implications.
We didn't do one for Shang-Chi. I think at this point it doesn't really matter. I think we should probably just rewind it and get back on track into terms of pros and cons, because we're kind of just rambling into a nothingness. Should we just wind it back?
Yeah, wind it back. Get back on track.
Pros. We've already talked about a lot of the pros.
Yeah.
Cast was good.
Cast was good. Length was good. Obviously,
I think
quite long.
honestly, it should have been longer. I would
Yeah.
like a longer cut, but you know,
we get what we're given. This is still more than we expect usually.
introducing the Celestials was always going to be a tough ask, because it's these big.
Oh, the Celestials look great.
Yeah, they're big planet-like entities.
Yeah.
Who are apparently birthed the universe and all of this. And so for any director, it's going to be a tough ask. For no one, how do you contextualize that for audiences who aren't familiar with it? How do you show them on screen?
Yeah.
How do you is it all going to be
make them quote unquote realistic for this? Yeah,
and I think that she pulls it off. They look like they do out of the comics. They look like Kirby himself could have, obviously not as colorful, but they look close to the Kirby designs, which is so nice to see.
Yeah,
I would like some further clarification in the next movie or the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie, where now Ego is at the moment canonically, technically the first Celestial to be introduced, right? There's a thing. No, see, now this leads into another thing. I saw this on YouTube, right? So, alleged, what people think is happening is the Celestial phase is going to be all about our big boy Galactus.
The cosmic phase.
The cosmic phase.
Yeah.
And the theory is so far is the Celestials, instead of creating like a planet seed or whatnot, because obviously Galactus feeds on Celestials to keep sort of universal order and balance in check.
Yeah.
The theory is that Ego was in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Ego was a prototype of an organic Celestial that could function the same as the other Celestials, but is not born of that kind of, we'll say, matter or like, not quite organic, but that kind of system that Galactus feeds off of. He can't feed on Ego the same as he feeds on the other planets that the planet seeds Celestials infect with. So, like, obviously, we'll say Earth is a giant target to Galactus, but Ego might not be. So I want more clarification.
It doesn't matter if Ego could be devoured by Galactus or not.
No, but what matters is Peter Quill half a Celestial, and how will that factor into movies going forward?
Yeah, true. Yeah, no, it's all.
Look, it's a really interesting thing because we're getting into comic book lore, which is so the MCU has set itself up in a certain way.
Yeah,
they're introducing characters like Ego, like Thanos, and spoilers for the amazing Stinger in Eternals.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah,
I'll
keep it brief.
James is putting his pen down.
I'll keep it brief.
It's
pertinent to the conversation. So, one of the best Avengers from the 80s. It was a character called Star Fox. His name is actually Eros, but they call him Star Fox because you can't have a guy walking around being like, I'm Eros, the god of sex or whatever, or love. Anyway, in the comics, he's Thanos' brother. So in the comics, Thanos too is an Eternal, but has what they call a deviant genetic strain, which is what makes him blue because of reasons.
Yeah.
It's a mutation, which is... So there's this whole thing about his relationship. Thanos defines himself by his relationship with Star Fox. So Star Fox is this cool guy. He gets to do what he wants. He's happy. Everyone loves him. Thanos has a deviant strain. He's bad news.
Yeah.
You don't want to hang out with people with a deviant strain. They're not good guys. And that's, of course, that's this whole thing. He's not actually, you know what I mean? Like, having a deviant strain doesn't make you a deviant. It's just what they call it. They said the MCU has set itself up where Thanos was not recognized as an Eternal, at least in the same way that these guys are. He's like this guy who just wants to kill half the universe for reasons. Yeah. Reasons.
The other point was Thanos was potentially trying to stop Galactus by annihilating half of existence.
Stop the Celestial, because the Celestial being born of the planet has to
slow the
Celestials the energy of the... I think that would be a terrible retcon. Yeah. They can retcon it in several ways, but it really doesn't matter.
So the interesting thing about the Stinger is this thing introduces Star Fox to the MCU, played by Harry Styles, who looks amazing in the outfit. But the interesting thing is, I'm pretty sure it actually announces him as brother of Thanos.
He does, yeah.
So it seems now I remember we were talking about it with James, and we were talking about maybe they don't mean it in a literal sense. But they probably will. I think they're going to do a slight retcon.
Yeah, I mean, I guess...
Not retcon, because it's not such a retcon, because his backstory is not that heavily
if I'm not
investigated.
I mean, like, the MCU can change things from the comics. They've done that before. If I'm not mistaken, in the comics, Thanos is the son of two Eternals, but has a deviant gene, which is why he's like a big purple guy, which I find kind of silly, but, comic books.
Yeah, also it's in space.
And that's why his brother is like a normal looking guy. But but I think they could do that. Like they've set up that Phastos and his partner had a son.
Yeah.
You know, a normal son. So it's like they could just say, "Oh, Thanos' parents were Eternals, and he had the deviant gene, and that's why he looks at," and just not mention. Like it doesn't matter.
No. But anyway,
what,
they're space
what is
aliens.
important,
Like,
which I think we should probably get to, what is more important is that, like with Star Fox, which Callum got very, very excited about. I cannot stress this enough to listeners. He got very, very excited about Harry Styles coming out with that costume, being like, "I'm Star Fox, baby," doing the finger guns. What's more important is the Eternals movie feels more like a big game changer in the MCU than any of the previous
it really kicked
movies.
It sets up, like we've all heard the term the cosmic phase, right?
Yeah.
You know, this kicks it into motion in big time.
Yeah.
It introduces big players in the cosmic version of like the cosmic comics in the Marvel comics, but it also raises interesting questions, like Nathan was saying about like the Ebony Blade. Nathan was saying is in the comics in it, which is a different version of the Ebony Blade now.
That's a little bit too related to like Venom. And stuff like that.
But in the comics, the Ebony Blade has all
now
kinds.
they're introducing Venom into the MCU.
It has all kinds. The Ebony Blade has all kinds of powers, and stuff. So there's all of these.
There is a celestial head floating in space. We don't know how long the Ebony Blade's been with Dane Whitman's hands,
but
we don't know if it might have cut off a celestial head. We don't know.
Yeah.
The point is, it's introducing all of these big questions, which are going to be explored in later films, but which allows us to do what we do best: speculate.
Yeah, speculate. Like, I don't want to speculate too much now because oftentimes our reviews are just speculation and we don't end up talking about the movie. Like, we've stopped talking about Eternals completely. Started speculating about stuff that we're going to review anyway when it ends up not being about what we talk about anyway. But I just wanted to mention that watching Eternals, whether you liked it or not, felt like a big deal for the MCU.
I think it, like we said, it felt like it was the best MCU movie since Infinity War. Was the way I phrased it.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
in certain ways, it's it feels like the most important movie.
We enjoyed Endgame, but that had problems. But Spider-Man Far From Home was okay.
But it's very self-isolated. It's very isolated movie.
Maybe it was better, but Black Widow was terrible.
But the interesting thing
what other movies have there been since then? Shang-Chi was okay. That's it, right?
Yeah. I mean, the series have been more important.
Yeah,
in some
but in
ways
terms of the movie.
So,
I mean, Eternals is
interesting.
Like
the reason,
not even close to being the worst MCU movie.
The reason I mention the Stinger is because when we reach the end of Eternals, we find ourselves in a place where Arishem has abducted all the Eternals who did the wrong thing by him and stopped the birthing of Celestial of Tiamat. And we find ourselves in a situation where the Icarus is flown into the sun because his Icarus scared the wings and got them. Anyway,
Icarus feel bad.
I like that. No, I like that because oftentimes, either on the show or oftentimes off air, I always talk about how a character will do a terrible, unforgivable thing, and everyone will just be like, "It's cool," and then the movie or show continues.
like Wanda.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, they have to atone.
Yeah.
There has to be some sort of penance.
But do you think he's dead, though?
I don't care.
We'll find out.
I think the action...
The act of contrition itself was important.
Because he betrayed his fellow Eternals,
the
people he loved the most, to complete his mission to birth the Celestial and destroy the Earth.
Actions have consequences.
And for them to just be like, it's okay, we forgive you, is not enough.
Yeah.
Him sacrificing himself, I was just like, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And people complaining about it online, I'm like, it's comic books. He's an Eternal. He can come back at any point.
Yeah, for all we know, Arishem zapped him before he could get to the core of the sun.
Just the fact that he did it, I like that because oftentimes...
That's a good point.
But we find ourselves in this position now where it's introducing characters for a certain purpose. They need to rescue the Eternals.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what we believe. So we find ourselves in a position where everybody's getting primed for another adventure.
Dane needs his Celestial killing sword so he can save his girlfriend from the Celestial.
And I guess for some reason Blade needs to be involved, which will be made clear during the Blade movie, I guess.
The ebony sword
Wouldn't that be cool?
The ebony blade is a blade and he is
and
he is a blade.
But wouldn't it be cool if Dane is like a supporting character in the Blade movie, like if they're it's like them
I mean, I
together.
assume they're hinting at something.
Yeah, be
and
like
Yeah.
a buddy
I'm so
cop
glad.
movie
I'm so glad it
killing
wasn't
vampires.
Doctor Strange, because how many times we need Doctor Strange to be like, oh, the multiverse.
Doctor Strange is going to be an important part, though,
Yeah,
especially after the next multiverse movie.
yeah. So yeah, I think that the reason I mentioned this thing is because we're going in a very interesting direction,
Yeah.
which is of course the next big film, in my opinion, to come out is going to be Guardians 3, which is in the same style.
That's
of
not for a
Celest-
while, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like the same kind of celestial, big scope
Yeah.
galaxy.
I'm looking forward to seeing
Stuff.
Adam Warlock.
Yeah,
Finally.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like
'cause when did they? When was this thing of Adam Warlock? That was ages ago.
Where-
Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which is
Yeah.
2014.
like, are we heading in a
something
direction
like
where we're gonna see some sort of heist movie
No, 2017.
with like the
Was it
Eternals?
the first one? I can't remember.
Again, speculation, which we want to
Yeah.
avoid. But like, obviously, there's going to be a moment in the Marvel series where they have to rescue the Eternals, right? And I would like somehow for the Guardians to fit in and get more of that.
Yeah.
Big possible
Thor,
Queen Steel
Thor will
backstory.
probably show up.
Thor
Yeah.
will probably show up. Captain Marvel will be like, "Oh, sorry, I'm busy."
Yeah.
And then she'll be like,
I
she
did
does,
like, yeah.
she does at the end of Shang-Chi, which we
Yeah.
thought that was
We
hilarious.
was hilarious.
Also, quick mention that
Mark Ruffalo is no longer Doctor Hulk. Professor Hulk.
Professor Hulk. Banner is now in his human form, which I like because I didn't really like what they did.
I did like that little bit. Banner's like, yeah, I don't know. when she disappears.
she does that. All right, let's talk about
Cons.
actual
Yes.
the movie
Yes.
Eternals.
Okay, yeah.
Because we're speculating, and I don't like speculate. Like, I know that's a big part of what we do on the show, but I don't like doing it anymore because I feel like next week they're going to announce something that makes all our discussion pointless, and then when we review the next movie or show, it's going to change
Good
the
point, good
context
point.
anyway. We should just talk about
Yeah.
the actual theme.
cons, CG.
Look, some of the CGI is pretty bad, but not as bad
No,
as
no,
the
no.
previous
I think,
five
and
or so
for me,
Marvel movies.
For me, the Deviants, it felt a little lazy.
Deviants
Yeah.
weren't very good,
The problem is,
but the fights with the Deviants were
Yeah.
pretty
You know, look,
cool.
we can't have Fantastic Four, but
Yet.
this isn't the first time we've had a damn Super Skrull as the villain. And it frustrates me. Okay, there's only one real villain in Marvel Comics who does this, and it's Super Skrull. But they give us a deviant who absorbs people's powers.
They
and look,
screwed up the Skrulls in the MCU. They screwed
Yeah.
up. Look, I'll be honest. They screwed up the Deviants,
yeah,
which are much more interesting in the comics and much more unique. But for the movie, it made sense
yeah.
to have them
Yeah.
have an tag. Actually, I'll be honest. I would have been more interested in a movie with no villains. I know we just.
Just a drama.
I know we just got
yeah.
finished talking about how action movies are only good as its
Yeah.
villain, and Shang-Chi needed a stronger villain. But I would have been much more interesting
Well,
in
it
a
depends on the
3-hour
movie, right? Like that was a
about
kung fu
people who
no,
live forever.
Yeah, it's a different movie. The Shang-Chi was about like kung fu and all that kind of stuff. That needs a villain, right?
Yeah.
A family drama doesn't need a villain in the same way that
Yeah.
Shang-Chi did.
It would
Yeah.
be interesting to see a 3-hour movie about these people who live forever.
Where the only
going
villain
through-
is time.
Yeah, exactly. And not being able to interfere.
Or like, maybe just finding each
But-
other, and like maybe one of them doesn't
Yeah.
want to be found, and so it's this whole search
Yeah.
for Spock situation.
Yeah. But, like, in saying that, the fights with the Deviants, CGI's whatever, but the fights themselves and the way
The fights between each other were pretty
Yeah,
Very
and
well
the way the
choreographed.
Eternals present their powers,
Yeah.
it's well shot, it's interesting. It's too dark like most of these movies, most of the time.
Highlight for
except
the
end
moment,
fight.
I forget the character's name, the inventor.
Fastus.
Fastus. His fight against Icarus was cool.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
everyone's just like, I feel like he's the kind of character that
Icarus
everyone is just like,
are always
he's
underrated,
whatever. He's
yeah.
not the strong one.
After we saw them, like, Icarus's powers are very much Superman powers.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, I was like, this is the best Superman movie since the original, like in the 70s.
Yeah.
Like, it's much better than a lot of the powers on display are really cool and well done, and
Yeah.
like the fights between the characters, really cool.
Yeah.
Um,
No, a lot of the
I do like that
dramas are good.
Faustus's powers were kind of they were understated because he's not like a fighting guy, but when he does need to fight, he uses his intelligence as his
Yeah.
strength. So
invent
instead of
things, yeah.
instead of taking on Icarus one like mano,
Yeah.
it's like he's gonna tie him down, and not even the strength of Icarus can break the ingenuity of Faustus. So it's this thing where Faustus, I think he even says something along the lines of, "You've always underestimated me."
Yeah.
And he gets that moment of like, you know, eternal siblings, and he's finally like, "I'm gonna get you."
Icarus is so OP that like I think towards the end he was breaking out of it, but then Cersei, because he does break out of it, and then Cersei changes his mind or whatever. Yeah, like I like, you know, we talk about third act problems. It's like I like the big crazy battle at the end, even with all the CGI and stuff. I was kind of like,
it worked because again, it was at such a large scale that it fit the Eternal sort of motif.
I personally really didn't like the Deviant. I thought that I would have preferred, and you know, this is just my opinions, of course, but like, why couldn't they have some person get infected by a deviant, and then that way you have a real person, like, you know, absorbing the powers of the dead Eternals, and that way you get a real person, not just
have the deviants have more personality. Like,
maybe he should have looked like a person to begin with, or like I said, a real actor, not just like a rubbery looking thing.
Yeah, CGI.
Because that was my problem. I'm like, for a movie with such strong actors, such strong character dynamics, the villain is just a rubbery looking brown monster.
I think I agree. It doesn't help that the villain itself is just kind of like
just like
a
black
cordy, like a corded sort of black
brown monster guy,
black kind of glump.
And then he does learn to speak, but then he's just like, oh, you know, Irish Shem did bad by me. Oh no,
we're running out of time, but I want to quickly rapid fire a few things. One problem I do have with the movie is that even though it is a movie about the Eternals helping humanity evolve, and not being able to fight in their wars, which doesn't really make sense if you think about it, but whatever. I think that one of the problems is there are a lack of, because of the scope and the lack of time, there are a lack of like actual just human characters that these people interact with. Yes, you see them in villages and helping people and living with people. Yeah. But other than Dane, who's not in it a lot, they don't really interact. And the valet, what's his name? They don't really live with people. Yeah, apart from there should be more human. But then again, you need a TV series.
But then, I was gonna say like Druig's whole subplot about living in the town could have been explored more. But
Barry Keoghan is so good, and Druig was like all our favorite character.
Yeah, because he's the only one with a moral compass.
He's the only one who's like, screw this, I'm going to interfere. I can't let people die. Like when we can stop it. But then he like lives in like this community where he's just keeping those people safe, and I was like, that's fair enough, but also like he didn't really do a lot to. But he was a more interesting,
psychologically interesting character.
I think we'll end it up because we're out of time. But
this movie doesn't deserve the criticism it's getting at the end of the day.
It's bizarre that this is the movie that people decided to draw the line in terms of MCU.
Like the interesting, like philosophical.
People were okay with Black Widow. People were okay. With I'm just like, this is nowhere near that bad. It is. No.
It's adventurous.
And like I said, even if it is bad, it's interesting in its badness. It's in its ambitious, it's terrible in its ambitiousness.
Yeah,
rather
take some
than
risks.
Just boring, lazy cookie cutter crap. It
Like
takes risk. It feels creative, even if it doesn't necessarily, break out of a mold.
This is definitely a movie I will watch again when it goes on Disney Plus.
This is the one MCU movie from the last however many there have been where I was like, I want to watch this again soon.
Especially with a couple of the twists. It's like I want to go back and rewatch.
Yeah, very quickly. We talked about this after the movie finished. Chloe Zhao, the director, is an actual comic book fan and
she took a lot from the comics for this.
They offered her Black Widow. She's like, no thanks, but if you're doing something with Eternals, I'm interested. And then later they're like, hey, you want to do Eternals? And she's like, cool.
I've already got the script ready, guys. Yeah.
And, when we reviewed Birds of Prey, I said, there's no way this director and writer were fans of comics.
Yeah, you can tell that you can tell these characters.
They might have been, and I might have been talking about my ass, but we were watching that movie, we've been like, no way. A lot of these MCU movies, we're like, we know the comic book fans are often writers and directors of this movie, but it's hard to tell sometimes.
Yeah.
Eternals is like, it kind of feels like Chloe Zhao was like,
has a love for the characters.
out on these characters.
She loves the characters, understands them.
That no one knows about.
It takes a lot from the Neil Gaiman run of comics, specifically.
Yeah. And she introduces this many characters and this game-changing these game-changing events.
Like even one of the villains, Icarus. It's like even him, you can see that he's psychologically complex.
Yeah.
That she has an affection for him as like a creator. Because he's not an entirely evil guy.
Yeah, but that's also because he's one of the main.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
heroes.
I'm like even like all of the, like you said, it's all balanced. All the characters are balanced. The amount of time that's given to them.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much to Athena, but
yeah. Look, it had problems. It is messy, but it's good in its messiness. It is long, but it honestly should have been longer. It should have been a TV show, but for what we get, it's
Not
interesting.
bad.
Why people are having this as their worst one? I don't know.
Marvel
People have got to get their priorities straight.
Yeah.
If they let other stuff slide,
Yeah, I reckon it's as simple as, is this a popcorn movie as much as Shang-Chi? No, that's why it gets the bad review.
yeah.
Marvel
I
should
think
take
it's
more
literally
risks.
that simple.
They should take more risks.
Yeah.
It can only be good for the art form. You know what I mean? Like the movies can only grow. Even the executives can only learn from the experience.
Yeah.
You don't lose anything.
Yeah,
By
we talked about this last week,
by being
and we'll
adventurous.
talk about it in the future. So superhero movies were better before the MCU.
Oh, 100%.
Because now they're all cookie cutter, they're all the same, they'll look and feel the same. And for the one movie that tried to do something slightly different and people bit its head off, kind of shows you people don't deserve good movies.
Yeah.
And Eternals isn't even that good in terms of all movies. I'm just saying, it's like
In the
one
context,
time, the one time they tried to do something, it backfired. And it's like, why was this the one?
Also, keep in mind that everybody else could be wrong. And we're right.
Look, I said it at the start of the show.
At least we can reason our arguments correctly.
I said at the start of the show, and we'll end on this because we are out of time. We are very much in a sea of straight white nerds arguing about pop culture. There are so many of these types of shows. Everyone has a podcast now. We have the hottest, spiciest takes, and we are always...
We will not apologize unless we're actually wrong.
And we always seem to have some sort of compass that other people are like stuck in some sort of storm where the compass is just flipping around.
Yeah.
Whereas, at least I like to think we have some sort of degree of
consistency.
Yeah. And taste and, whatever. I don't know. I've had enough. We talked too long.
No,
and I want to go home. I want to have a pizza and go home or something. I don't know.
That's all for tonight. Thank you for listening, everybody. You can catch us on Spotify, iTunes, Shout Engine, or wherever you listen. Please like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page, the Twitter, or the Instagrams. That's all for tonight. We'll be back next week with more spicy hot takes. Adios, cousins.